Welcome to #52Needs, and this week we are exploring honesty. And I'm so delighted to have with me Abel Wanamakok, who's a professional communicator and the founder of Find Your Voice Asia. Her goal is to guide individuals of any age to communicate honestly, openly, and from their hearts. With her own experiences and her client success stories, Abel leads through the formative process of going through one's ego to find the true authentic self, to use one's own natural strengths and talents to nurture the relationship with oneself and others. Successfully balancing a fulfilling family life with the glamorous world of celebrity, Abel is an award-winning coach and has been named Asia Women Leader 2019. With over 15 years of experience as a news anchor, TV show host, stage MC, and voiceover artist, man, you're packing it in, right? Abel has worked all over the world, taking on many stages, including TEDx and motivational speaker engagements. And as she said, be able, be heard. Welcome, Abel. It's so lovely to see you.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for having me.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So we started talking about this before we started recording, that we both started thinking about how honest are we really before.
Oh my gosh. I apologize for that. I thought I turned it off.
Okay, shall we start again? No, actually, we both started so we've both already discussed that before we started this conversation, that we had this thought of how honest are we really, right? Mm-hmm. Because we were, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I start preparing myself for something, I just start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, your mind is preparing for it, right? I was asking that same question myself this morning.
Okay, so what did you come up with?
Sometimes I doubt myself whether I am actually honest or not. Okay. But after I doubt myself and after I was thinking about it, I realized that I am still very, very honest because I'm asking the questions. I'm asking myself these questions about, am I honest? Well, if I am not honest, I would not even be thinking about that, right? Okay. I find that I just
what is honesty?
What is honesty?
Because you can be, the one thing that I thought about was you can tell the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You can be really honest, but not necessarily tell the truth.
Yes. You know what? That is
good at making up stories, right?
That is really great. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a really, really good question. I think these are some of the things that our minds try to get smart and clever about how we perceive life, how we look at situations, to see how we can in some way even manipulate things so that it can be under our control or under our influence, or that we are seen in a better light.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about honesty today, I have to tell you that there are times when I'm not honest and when I'm not telling the truth because I'm afraid of the repercussions, the judgments, which I and everybody in the world gets judged every single time of every day by whoever. And that's not something that I realized that I have control over. So I realized, and I started to weed out all the things that I find that is not necessary to think about, such as how other people perceive me. I try to be as honest as I can, but there are times when I choose not to tell the truth because they could totally hurt my relationship with someone. I find that as human beings, we are always learning through mistakes, through relationships. And I do believe that I am very, very, very honest with myself. Otherwise, I would not have gone through the change that I have been through the last 2 years, raising my consciousness and going beyond my ego. And when I say going beyond my ego, is trying to not identify who I am with all of these fixed situations and identities and roles that I play. But I am still learning. That's why I'm still learning. And as we are in the process of learning and growing, we can only be as honest as we can be and as truthful to ourselves as we can be at this present moment.
Okay.
So that's all I can say. I don't even know how to answer that question.
Okay, well, so what I've heard you say was there's a difference between being honest with other people and then there's being honest with ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
So I can be really honest with myself, but then I can not be so honest with other people in the sense of, fudging the truth just a little bit, the white lie or something like that. But we can also have a perception that, I remember, I'm the older one and I have a brother. And it was always, the older sister was like, my brother, the times he would say, she started it. And I'm like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't start.
Right.
And he's like, no, she did. And I would get into trouble because I was supposed to be the older one. I was supposed to be the more mature one. And I would sit there and say, but I didn't do anything. He was the one. So I learned that being really honest with people sometimes, wasn't, or that somebody could be honest, but not say the truth. And that then if I was honest, nobody believed me. And so if I said, yes, I screwed up, or yes, it was me, I did it, I would get into trouble. So it didn't really matter what I said, I would get into trouble.
Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah.
So it gets to the point where you go, so what can I actually say? It's not the swearing on the, swearing and saying, I'm going to say the truth and nothing but the truth. But what's okay to say?
Mm-hmm. What's okay to say? I think that has to deal with the situation or the context of the situation, right? The easiest thing that I can tell you is, for example, like my relationship with my husband, which I have been with him for, it's 24 years now. I've met him when I was 17.
I was going to say, you started dating in kindergarten, right?
Yeah, I was 17 and I'm 40, I'm 41 soon. And I'm totally honest with him. Too much. And then sometimes those honesty creates fights, creates arguments. Mm-hmm. And do you or do I want more arguments? Because we both have ego. We both have our ego and our perspectives, and we both think that we're right, even though we don't play those roles as much as we play with outsiders, because we're so close, right? We know so much about everything already. He knows where all my moles are and on my body. Let's just say it that way. So there is no need for me to lie to him anymore about anything. But even in a super close relationship like that, and I'm not talking about acquaintances, friends, other people that I care much, much, much less about. This is somebody that I love for 23, 24 years. It took me a while to fall in love with him. Obviously, we've been together for 24 years, but it's sometimes still not appropriate to say everything, to say the truth of everything. Because how do you know what you're thinking and what you're saying is true at that moment? Maybe you're still processing it also in your mind. So what is truth? I guess sometimes our minds think too much and then we just blur everything out and then everything just becomes too much of a theory. But I think at the end of the day, I follow my heart, I listen to my heart. I try not to lie about anything, because lying in a relationship does not help to have a long-term relationship. It does not help to build that strong foundation that you need to have in a family unit. But if he started to sing, let's say something very simple, if he started to sing a song that reminds me of something negative in my past, I cannot just be like, just shut up and don't sing. Like, I can't, I just have to allow him to have his freedom to go through his singing and have his fun. And my truth of blocking his pleasure is not nice. Just thinking something very simple. So it seems like there is no definitive answer for any person. Like, what I say cannot necessarily be what you agree with. And I'm not asking you to agree with me. I guess I'm just sharing my perspective as one in hundreds and thousands and hundreds of millions of a perspective.
Absolutely.
So that you can see, we're just sharing, right?
Yeah. Well, the whole point of these conversations is not to provide people with answers, but it's a discussion that helps people, come up with their own answers. So we're just exploring and going, so what is it? Because everybody's need around honesty, for example, is totally different.
Yes.
You know, but there are certain aspects that will apply to everybody. Like, for example, when I think about honesty, I also think about timing. You know, so sometimes it's not the right time to say to somebody, oh, by the way, you know, like if somebody has just had a massive breakdown or something, and then just saying to them, you know what, you're really, you know, you're really not getting out of drama. You know, you've told me the same story 5 times now. It's time for you to snap out of it. When somebody's really distressed, probably not a good time to do it. But to say to somebody once they have calmed down, a couple of days later, saying,
yes,
I'm here for you. I really want to listen to you, but you keep, I feel that we're going through the same issues over and over again.
Yeah.
Find a different way of dealing with that.
Right.
Maybe you could get, would it be helpful to get some help? You know, would help be useful for you? Because it feels like you're not moving on. I mean, I'm just making it up as I go right now. But this, again, you know, timing. You know, men, I mean, there's always this joke, you know, when a woman says, oh, does my butt look big in this? You know, again, it depends on the time. I mean, it's one of these standard stereotypical things, you know, when is honest too honest? But I think, you know, like, again, is it our willingness to hear an honest response as well?
That is totally the truth. I think when you were mentioning what you said earlier, I think it's very important that as you get wiser, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with age, as you get wiser, as you see more in life, meet more people, you will know when is the right timing. You will know from your heart also when is appropriate and when is not, and what you should and shouldn't say.
Yeah,
it has to do with how you observe the person that you're talking to, or the group of people that you're talking to, based on your perception of their receptiveness of what you're about to say, right? And I guess at the end of the day, I always say this in all my interviews and you know, podcasts, is I always follow my heart. I am very, very analytical in some aspects. I am, like I said to you last time, I am an entrepreneur, but I'm also an artist. And the artist side of me has more weight. I always follow my heart, and my heart is always right. But sometimes there are conflicts. So it takes longer for me to understand my heart when I have a conflict with my mind. But my heart always shows me the path, even though what the result immediately that comes from a situation may be a negative one. Over time, it actually becomes like a huge life lesson or some kind of growth or knowledge gained. So that's what I would give advice to people, is like, you know, you listen to your heart, but sometimes it's hard for many people to listen to the hearts because they're too much in their minds their whole lives. So
I like the balanced approach. I would say, listen to your heart, but not when you're upset. When you're upset and you're really emotional and you're going, okay, I'm going to just
calm. Yes.
Blurting out the truth, maybe not so, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I did miss that part. I listen to your heart when you're calm, when you're collected.
Yeah.
But not deceiving yourself as well, you know.
Yeah.
No,
it can be, it's really, I think it's, again, being honest with other people is one thing. Being honest with ourselves, that's a totally different story, because we can just, you know, like talk our way out of all sorts of things, you know, like make a commitment. I'm going to do this every day, and then have all sorts of excuses. And then saying, you know what, if I were really honest with myself, that's not really a commitment I'd like to make. You know, I don't really want to get up every morning at 5 o'clock and exercise for an hour. No. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's funny. You know, one of the reasons why I picked honestly, I mean, you gave me a few choices, but I picked honesty because the last 2 years, I really reflected a lot on what I thought I was, who I thought I was. And when you start to become really, really honest with yourself and actually being vulnerable with yourself, because there's no place else to hide when you are with yourself. There's nothing to hide behind. Of course, you can create things in your mind, but if you are around, if you can feel the space around your heart, and I don't know why I said that, but there's always guidance, there's always a compass, that leads you to the truth, leads you to your path. And I find that being truthful to yourself is much, much harder. Really, really honest with yourself is much, much harder than any relationship outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Because you cannot grow okay, I'll give you an example. I only learned that I had deep resentment and hatred even towards some parts of my mother when I was 39 years old. And I never knew that.
Yeah.
I honestly never even knew I was so angry with how I wanted my mother to be. And I said how I wanted my mother to be because I did not accept her fully as she is. And it was only when I was able to understand her fully, and then somehow I started to understand myself fully, you see, because I had this perception of how I should be.
Yeah.
Also, how my mother should be, how my father should be, what they didn't provide for me. It was anger. And I thought to myself, how could you not know that you are so angry and such an angry person until you're freaking 39 years old? I was saying this to myself. And I don't say this to anybody else. I'm saying this to myself when I'm half naked in the bathroom, talking to myself in the mirror after I take a shower. I usually have these kinds of honest conversations with myself during that time. And I'm being very honest here right now. And it is when you're honest with yourself, when you're trying to focus on some flaws of somebody else, that you start to see the flaws within you.
Yeah. Generally, when we get triggered by somebody and when we get, my experience is when somebody really pushes our buttons, and we go into judgment, it's probably something that we don't like in ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And I hate saying this. I don't like to say this either.
Yeah.
I don't like to say this either. It's so hard to accept.
Yeah. I was in a workshop once, and I was supposed to room with somebody. And I took one look at this woman, and I had spent a little bit of time with her, but I went, I don't want to share a room with you. So I maneuvered it that so I didn't have to. And I met her at another workshop sometime later and she said to me, that was really difficult, because when you shifted out of that room, it meant I had to pay for a single room. And I just didn't want to do that at that time. And I went, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that. But we had a really honest conversation about it. And I said, look, I really didn't want to be in a room with you because I didn't like you. And she said, well, I said, I just didn't want to spend 10 days in the same room with you. And I had things to do. That was not an excuse. That was actually true. And I needed space. And she said, yeah, well, I didn't like you either. And I was like, excellent. So we had this really long conversation. And what turned out in the end was that we had both perceived each other, and we both used exactly the same word for it, as a bulldozer. It was just like getting what you wanted.
Wow.
And it was really interesting because we looked at each other and started laughing and went, Mira, excellent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a great story.
So I said, we went then, this is over, quite a long time. So there was another workshop coming up, and I said, so how about we room together? And she's like, oh, okay. So we did. And we had the most amazing time.
Wow. So it was the perception of a certain type of, it's perception that blocks that. Yep. But if you didn't have that perception, you wouldn't have the chance to have that honest conversation too.
Yeah. It was really great, because we both got to have a really good look at each other. And, and what it means is also being honest with myself. I can be a bulldozer. I can just go, and just power through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I proud of it? No. But is it part of me? Yes. Can I manage it? Most of the time, sometimes not.
Well, we are all different people in different situations too.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many layers of all humans.
Yeah.
And we really just show a superficial side. You know, I mean, for me right now, it's impossible for me to show all sides of me. I have a calm side, an angry side. I have a, extroverted side, I have an introverted side, and then whatever, like 10 million other things that can trickle down. And it's not possible for me to show you all of this.
No.
Um,
that
so
takes a long time. And that's peeling back the layers as well, as we build trust and we become trustworthy, and we realize that there's a sincerity, there's no, oh, I'm just I'm just pretending who I'm not.
Right.
And it may be also, again, the honesty with self, saying, I just screwed up here, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I think that's really important as well.
I think that is one of the most important, that builds trust, to respect yourself, to not be egoic about who you believe yourself to be and that you cannot be wrong, and then also to build a trust with another person as well. I think that is very, very important in building relationships. Yeah.
Again, I mean, I like the slow reveal, like I find it really hard when people tell me their whole life story within the first half hour of meeting me, and that has happened. Like, and I, oh yeah, oh, you're a coach, excellent, blah. And I know that I come from I mean, this is really being honest. In my family, there was not a lot of honesty. We used to hide behind facades a lot.
Yeah.
I asked my mother if she was, and then I could see she was in pain, and I asked her how she was. She would say, I'm fine, everything's good. So I didn't learn to be honest in my family. So when I grew older, I flipped into the opposite. I was just radically honest. I was just sharing stuff that I should have never shared with people, until I learned how to actually put boundaries in place and saying, well, this is appropriate and this is not. I'm still honest, but I don't share my deepest, darkest secrets with somebody I've just met.
Of course not. I wouldn't either.
No, I mean, I never did that. I have to say,
I have like one.
But again, it's the it's not that I ever did my deepest, darkest secrets, but I would, again, there's an appropriateness to sharing.
Yes.
And straightforwardness is not necessarily, like laying it all out. You can again, timing. There are all sorts of things. There are all sorts of facets to honesty that I find really fascinating.
Yes, I do too. And this is the first time that I actually have a conversation with another person on this topic. I never talked about honesty. Never. I mean, I have shown the acts of honesty or straightforwardness, or, bearing my truth, but we never talk and discuss it. It was just the action of it. Yeah.
Well, that's why I love having these conversations, and I hope that everybody who's watching it finds it exactly as useful, because it's just creates all sorts of wonderful conversations with people. What does that actually mean to you? What's your need around honesty? How honest do you need me to be? Or do you want me to talk about, I mean, like, again, do you want me to talk about my past? Do you want me to talk about my past relationships? How much do you want me to reveal about, my jobs, why I was having problems in my jobs? I mean, there are all sorts of things that where, you might have a more complex version of the truth and a more simplified version. Again,
right.
Lots of variants.
Right. I tend to see myself sharing more of my history and my story, because you were just talking about the past, and being very honest about it, because what I find, and I know this as well, is that I have this, I don't know, what is it called? Like, I don't know, a magic wand. There's something about me that makes people open up to me. And that's usually because I'm very open and honest. And when I say I'm open and honest, it's not that I'm telling those people that I just met my darkest secrets, but I do open my heart to them. And I don't really have like, I guess it's a feeling that I project because people start to tell me their problems, their stories. They tell me that they're depressed or whatever it is. And I wasn't talking about I'm depressed, but they just start talking to me that they're depressed, looking for help. And I find that for me to share my truth heals me and my past, you know, sharing my past stories, which are my truth. It heals me, and then somehow it helps other people as well. And I find that many people do that nowadays now. It's almost becoming like a trend that you started telling people about your past. The only thing is when you're introducing me is when I was saying that I coach people to go beyond their ego, is that you also need to know that our ego likes to identify with certain things, such as our past, our perceptions of our past, our stories. And sometimes if you share too much of your past, you identify too much with being whatever that situation that you are in is, such as a victim or the savior. Those are the two things. I was either the savior or the victim. I mean, how contradictory.
No. That's absolutely. Well, what it is the more often we tell a story that we start believing in, the more we become that story, and it becomes our identity.
Yes,
so I like talking about things for a while, but then it's time to let it go.
Yes, yes, you have to learn to let that go as well.
And thankfully there are lots of tools that help with that.
Letting go is not easy. It requires a lot of honesty.
It's a lifelong process. Yes.
Oh goodness.
Okay. Well, this was a really stimulating conversation and so much food for thought. Thank you so much, Abel. It's been absolutely delightful. And
thank you.
I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you everybody for watching. And we'll see you next week.